From security breaking up wild fan behavior to golfers crumbling under pressure, the 2026 Waste Management Phoenix Open had it all. These are the most unbelievable moments from this year's event. So here's the thing about Joel Dahmen. He's never been afraid to entertain. It's Super Bowl weekend in 2026, and Dahmen's Seattle Seahawks are in the big game. The 16th hole at the Phoenix Open is already the loudest place in golf, but Dahmen decided to make it even louder. After his tee shot, he walked toward the green and did something absolutely ridiculous. He pulled out a full Seattle Seahawks helmet and put it on. The entire stadium lost their minds. 20,000 fans screaming like they were at Lumen Field instead of a golf tournament. Now normally at the 16th, beer cans rain down when someone makes a hole-in-one or sticks it close. But Dahmen hadn't even reached his ball yet. He was just walking around in a football helmet at a PGA Tour event. Then came the actual golf shot. His ball wasn't on the green. Weird lie, tough angle, pressure building. Dahmen stepped up, chipped it perfectly, and watched it roll right into the cup for birdie. Absolute chaos. Beer cans flying everywhere. Fans going berserk. Dahmen standing there in his Seahawks helmet like he just scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. The no-fun police didn't even know where to start. The WM Phoenix Open at TPC Scottsdale is supposed to be golf's loudest party. Music, chaos, beer showers on 16, and roars you can hear from holes away. But for a few massive names in 2026, the party ended before it even began. They didn't make it to the weekend. Let's start with Brooks Koepka. After battling just to make the cut the week before at the Farmers in his long-awaited PGA Tour return, expectations were quietly building. This felt like the place where Koepka could remind everyone who he is. Instead, he never found a rhythm. No charge, no intimidation, just a scoreboard that kept him on the wrong side of the line until Friday evening sent him packing. Then came Jordan Spieth. And if you know Spieth, you know comfortable is never part of the script. He fought to stay inside the cut line all day Friday until it got chaotic. A bogey on the par 3 12th. Another mistake on the par 3 16th. Then disaster on 17 where he chipped his second shot across the green into the water and walked off with a double bogey that felt like the final blow. And quietly, Joel Dahmen joined them. A player who feeds off this place couldn't get anything going. No helmet, no heroics. Just an early exit from a course where he's given fans memories they'll never forget. The Phoenix crowd showed up ready for fireworks. But for these stars, it was frustration and a long walk to the parking lot. The Phoenix Open has always walked a fine line between electric atmosphere and pure chaos. In 2026, someone finally crossed it. Jack Doherty, a 22-year-old live streamer known for controversy, showed up at TPC Scottsdale with his camera rolling. He walked around offering people $100 to disrupt players during their swings. Eventually, someone took the bait. During Mackenzie Hughes's backswing, a spectator suddenly screamed, "Jackass!" at the top of his lungs. The crowd reacted in horror. Officials immediately rushed to the ropes looking for whoever did it. Meanwhile, Doherty kept his camera rolling, acting innocent, claiming he did nothing wrong. The police didn't buy it. Within minutes, they escorted both Doherty and the spectator off the property. Outside the gates, a PGA Tour official met him with a message that left no room for interpretation. "If you come back here again before this tournament is over, you will be arrested. I'm trespassing you from all future PGA Tour tournaments. If you show up at a PGA Tour event again, you will be arrested. Lifetime ban. Done. No appeals." The internet erupted. Even former Tour pro Smiley Kaufman posted, "Someone needs to give this kid a swirly. I volunteer as tribute." Turns out the Phoenix Open does have limits after all. Scottie Scheffler came to Scottsdale as the two-time defending champion. He'd won in 2022, won again in 2023, and just picked up a victory at the season opener. Everyone expected him to cruise round one. Not even close. Scheffler carded a 2/73, his worst opening round in over 2 years. His first over-par score on tour since June 2025. Tee shots pulled into trouble. Approach shots missing greens. Chips hit fat that barely moved. At one point, a pitch shot rolled back to his feet, and Scheffler visibly showed frustration, looking like he wanted to snap his wedge in half. A rare crack in the armor of the world number one. His usually elite short game completely abandoned him. Fat chip after fat chip, putts that wouldn't drop. The composure that made him the best player in the world was hanging by a thread. For a guy who hadn't seriously faced missing a cut in years, this was dangerous territory. Then came Friday. Redemption. Scheffler opened with pars, grabbed an early birdie, and suddenly found his rhythm. Approach shots crisper, putting sharper, confidence flowing again. He fired a bogey-free 65, rocketing up the leaderboard and putting himself right back into contention. From 2-over disaster to 5-under masterclass in 24 hours. The defending champ wasn't going home early. Chris Gotterup stood on the 13th tee Sunday afternoon, staring at a leaderboard that had him 5 shots behind. The tournament was slipping away. Hideki Matsuyama, the 2-time Phoenix Open champion, was cruising at 17 under par. The trophy was basically his. Gotterup needed a miracle. Then something clicked. Birdie on 13, birdie on 14, birdie on 15. The deficit was shrinking with every hole, but nobody in the crowd really noticed yet. Matsuyama was still in control, still steady, still 17 under. Gotterup kept his foot on the gas. Birdie on 16 sent the stadium crowd into a frenzy. Suddenly people were checking their phones, looking at scoreboards, whispering to each other, "Wait, is Gotterup actually making a run?" Par on 17, 1 hole left. One more birdie and he'd post 16 under par, but he was still trailing by 2 shots. Matsuyama, Thorbjornsen, Scheffler, all ahead of him, all with better chances. Then came the 18th. His second shot found an awful lie off the fairway. Weird angle, tough approach. At that exact moment, Gotterup's win probability sat at 0.7%, less than 1% chance. He stepped up and striped it anyway. The ball landed on the green. The putt dropped. Birdie number 5 in his last 6 holes. 16 under par. Clubhouse leader. Now all eyes turned to Matsuyama. He needed par to win. Instead, his tee shot sailed left into the church pew bunkers. Second shot caught the lip. Bogey. Sudden death playoff. An hour after having a 0.7% chance to win, Gotterup was headed to overtime. The Phoenix Open is supposed to be loud. That's the whole point. 20,000 fans screaming at the 16th hole. Beer cans flying after hole-in-ones. Pure chaos wrapped in golf spikes. But Sunday at the 72nd hole, something crossed the line. Hideki Matsuyama stood over a putt to win the tournament outright. 17 under par, 2-time Phoenix Open champion about to claim his 3rd title. The crowd was supposed to be silent, respectful, tense. Instead, as Matsuyama started his stroke, someone screamed. He backed away. The crowd booed the heckler. Matsuyama reset, tried again, and eventually missed. The moment was poisoned. The putt that should have won him the tournament turned into a bogey that forced a playoff. Then it got worse. First playoff hole. Matsuyama stood on the tee, ready to hit his drive. Mid-downswing, a loud noise erupted from the gallery behind him. Reports later said it was a security guard dropping a chair. Others claimed it was another heckler calling out. Either way, Matsuyama stopped himself mid-swing and backed away. Other spectators scolded whoever caused the disruption. Matsuyama eventually hit his tee shot anyway, straight into the water. 2 times in 10 minutes, Hideki Matsuyama had been sabotaged by poor fan behavior. The second time in as many holes that the crowd had disrupted him at the worst possible moment. The loudest tournament in golf had officially become the ugliest. Now brace yourselves because this is something no one expected. Back to the 18th tee. One hole for all the marbles. Chris Gotterup had just posted 5 birdies in his last 6 holes to force this moment. Hideki Matsuyama had just watched a tournament slip through his fingers after crowd disruptions destroyed his focus. Now they were tied at 16 under par. Sudden death. Gotterup stayed loose by hitting balls off the first tee while they waited. When it was time, he stepped up and absolutely crushed his drive. Massive, down the middle. Perfect position. Matsuyama yanked his tee shot even further left than he did in regulation. The ball careened off the bank of the lake and splashed into the water. Again, the exact same mistake in the exact same spot, only worse this time. The crowd groaned. Matsuyama's shoulders sagged. After taking a drop, Matsuyama hit his 3rd shot onto the green, still technically alive but barely. He'd need a miracle to save par and somehow extend the playoff. Gotterup didn't give him the chance. Standing over his birdie putt with the tournament on the line, Gotterup rolled it right into the center of the cup. Walk-off birdie, game over. His 4th career PGA Tour win, his 2nd victory in 3 starts this season. A 7 under 64 on Sunday, capped by one of the most clutch putts of the year. Matsuyama, the 2-time Phoenix Open champion who'd converted all 5 of his previous 54-hole leads into wins, walked off TPC Scottsdale in stunned silence. The loudest tournament in golf had crowned a new champion. This next one is classic Jordan Spieth. If there's one guy who can turn absolute disaster into pure magic, it's Jordan Spieth. And at the 2026 WM Phoenix Open, he pulled off a par save so ridiculous you had to see it to believe it. Let's set the scene. It's the final round. Spieth steps up to the tee on the par 4 11th hole, looking to make a move. But then trouble. His drive leaks right, settling under a bush in the desert. The crowd gasps. The commentators are already talking about damage control. But Spieth? He sees a way out. Instead of taking an unplayable, he flips his club over, stands left-handed, and punches the ball back into play with his putter. That's right, his putter. The ball barely sneaks past another bush and rolls out to safety, and he's still not done. From 124 yards out, Spieth dials up a perfect approach, landing his ball just 12 feet from the pin. One last step, one clutch putt. Drained it. The crowd erupts. What should have been a bogey or worse turns into one of the best par saves you'll ever see. And honestly, it doesn't get more Spieth than that. And trust me, this next one is unreal. Every golfer dreams of pulling off one impossible hole-out in a round, but Peter Malnati, he did it twice in a row on back-to-back holes. Let's set the stage. It's the 17th hole at TPC Scottsdale, a drivable par 4 that everyone is trying to reach off the tee. The risk is worth it. The reward? A chance at eagle or an easy birdie. But for Malnati, his tee shot went splash, straight into the water. A brutal mistake, the last thing you want when you're trying to score. So he takes his penalty drop, standing over his 3rd shot, needing a miracle just to save par. And then magic. He swings. The ball lands soft, takes a couple of hops, and gone. Hold it. The crowd goes wild. Malnati walks up shaking his head in disbelief, from disaster to birdie in one swing. But here's the best part. He wasn't done. On the 18th, he found himself in a greenside bunker. Another tough spot, another chance for things to go wrong. But just like before, Malnati stepped up and delivered. One perfect strike, one perfect bounce, and boom, another hole-out birdie. Back-to-back brilliance. From nearly crumbling on 17 to walking off 18 like he owned the place. And that's the kind of moment you don't just watch. Just wait until you hear about this one, because this year, Scotty Scheffler gave us a moment that left golf fans stunned. If you know Scotty, you know he's usually calm, collected, and never one to lose his cool. But here's the thing. His game wasn't what it used to be. Coming off an incredible 2024 season where he was nearly untouchable, expectations were sky high. But at the WM Phoenix Open, he was searching for his form, grinding through a frustrating start to the year. And then the moment happened. During his second round, after another wayward shot that summed up his struggles, Scheffler snapped. He turned to his golf bag, his trusty companion, and absolutely unloaded on it. 1, 2, 3 smacks, sending clubs rattling inside like a bad day at the drumline. The crowd, stunned, the cameras locked in. This wasn't just a casual tap of frustration. This was rage. A guy who made golf look effortless in 2024 was now fighting for every shot. And at the Phoenix Open, where chaos is always around the corner, this moment just added to the madness. This might just be the most unbelievable moment of the year. One player stepped up and hit a shot so unreal, it sent the entire place into absolute chaos. Here's how it went down. It's Friday at TPC Scottsdale, and the energy at the 16th hole is insane. Here comes Emiliano Grillo stepping up to the tee at the most rowdy par 3 in golf. He pulls a pitching wedge, locks in on the pin, and lets it rip. The ball launches into the sky, tracking dead straight at the flag. The crowd rises to their feet, holding their breath. No bounces, no rolls, just one perfect flight. Boom! Straight in. A slam-dunk hole-in-one. And that's when all hell broke loose. Beer cans, cups, hats, anything that wasn't bolted down went flying onto the course. The grandstands shook as thousands of fans lost their minds, screaming, jumping, and celebrating like their team just won the Super Bowl. And Grillo, completely stunned, tossed his club, threw his hands in the air, and just let the madness wash over him. But then the fans took it to Twitter. The excitement was so intense they had to document it. Suddenly, everyone turned into a breaking news reporter, giving live updates on the absolute madness at the 16th. People were calling it the loudest and longest roar ever heard at the hole. Some even claimed it made Sam Ryder's 2022 ace look quiet, which, let's be honest, is insane to think about. And the worst part of it all? The cleanup operation. Because when you drop an ace at the Phoenix Open, it's not just a golf moment, it's a wrecking ball. The 16th green completely littered with debris. It took 15 minutes just to clear the battlefield. But honestly, that's just part of the deal. Some people have never thrown a football in their lives, and it shows. We're not judging. Honestly, without them, we wouldn't have videos like this. So Padraig Harrington, the 3-time major champion, was having the round of his week, shooting an 8 under 63 that put him right in contention, just a few shots behind Phil Mickelson. But that's not what got the biggest roar of the day. When Harrington arrived at the famous 16th hole with 20,000 screaming fans packed into the stadium seating, he decided to give them something they'd never seen before. His caddy teed up an American football on the tee box. Harrington stepped back, measured his approach like he was lining up a field goal, then ran forward and absolutely booted it into the stands. For someone who claimed he'd never kicked an American football before, it was impressive. This was the same week Phil Mickelson threw footballs into the stands. By the way, the PGA Tour took one look at all this madness and decided enough was enough. By 2015, they banned players and caddies from throwing, kicking, or launching anything into the crowd at the 16th. Safety reasons, they said. But for one glorious year in 2013, Padraig Harrington turned the stadium hole into his own halftime show. Jared Lyle was trying to make the cut, sitting 3 under with 3 holes to play, right on the bubble. The 16th played 150 yards that day, and with the wind coming off the right, it was too far for a 9-iron but too short for an 8-iron. Lyle went with the 8-iron anyway. As soon as he hit it, he thought he'd struck it too hard. He even started waving his hands, motioning for the ball to get down. But it landed on the green, took 2 hops, and rolled straight into the cup. He truly owned every second of his well-deserved celebration. This was the first hole-in-one of his professional career, and he got it here. What nobody knew then was how much that moment would come to mean. Lyle battled leukemia for nearly 2 decades, beating it twice before it came back a third time. He passed away in August 2018 at just 36 years old. Now every year at the Phoenix Open, there's a permanent plaque on the 16th commemorating all the aces made there, with Jared Lyle's name etched in forever. A hole-in-one on a par 4. That shouldn't even be possible. But in 2001, Andrew Magee pulled off something that's never happened before or since in PGA Tour history. First round at TPC Scottsdale, Magee stepped up to the 17th hole, a short par 4 at just 332 yards. He'd been frustrated all day, having just made bogey a couple of holes earlier. The group ahead was still on the green putting, but Magee was impatient. He figured his drive wouldn't reach them anyway, so he went ahead and absolutely crushed one. The ball flew over the bunker, landed about 30 yards short of the green, and bounced hard onto the putting surface. That's when things got weird. Tom Byram was crouched down, sizing up his own putt, when suddenly a ball smacked straight into his putter, ricocheted off it, and rolled 8 feet directly into the hole. On the tee, Magee had no idea what just happened. He thought maybe he'd hit someone, and he stayed confused until a rules official drove up next to him and confirmed it. The shot counted, a 1 on a par 4. The only time it's ever happened on the PGA Tour. Turns out impossible often happens when you're not even trying. Here's where a woman suddenly goes all out to distract players, and distract she did. Think of it like this. You're watching a PGA Tour event at the 2020 Phoenix Open, and right as one of the pros is lining up his shot, a female fan by the 16th green decides to give him a bit of a surprise. Out of nowhere, she flashes her chest at the golfer, completely throwing him off his game. And if that wasn't enough, she did it again just to make sure everyone saw it. The crowd went wild. People were cheering, some were laughing, and one guy even shouted, "He's dying! He's dying! He is supposed to putt!" I mean, it was chaos. I bet it was a first for those players too, who had to stop and figure out what just happened. And let's be real, who wouldn't be distracted by something like that? The moment was caught on video, and it didn't take long for it to blow up on social media. Reactions were all over the place. Some people thought it was just a funny stunt, harmless fun at a golf tournament. Others, though, felt like it crossed the line. One person even joked about it being foreplay by the 16th green. Then there was Art Vandelay on Twitter who wasn't impressed, saying, "No place on the golf course for that type of behavior." Fair point, Art. But despite the commotion, Webb Simpson wasn't fazed. He went on to make 2 birdies and then won the whole thing in a playoff against Tony Finau. That's focus for you. Now in peak Anthony Kim form, fearless, electric, and completely unfazed by pressure, AK delivered one of the most perfectly struck shots the 16th hole has ever seen. 2010, the grandstands packed with thousands of screaming fans, the atmosphere already at a fever pitch. Kim stepped up to the tee on the par 3 and went straight after the flag, his natural aggression aimed at the pin. It wasn't a hole-in-one, but it felt like one. The shot was so pure, so perfectly executed under that kind of chaos that it became legendary. This was vintage AK, the guy who thrived on chaos, who fed off big moments, who seemed born for exactly this kind of stage. That shot on 16 captured everything Anthony Kim was at his peak and everything golf fans wish they could see again, which brings us to one of the most mind-blowing moments in golf history, one that had fans, officials, and even physics itself bending to Tiger Woods' will. The year was 1997, and Woods, already the biggest name in the sport, was tackling TPC Scottsdale. Everything was business as usual until his tee shot on one hole found trouble. Serious trouble. His ball had landed in the desert, wedged behind something that looked completely unplayable, a massive boulder. A rules official strolled over, assessed the situation, and then came the twist. a loophole in the rule book that changed everything. See, according to golf rules, a player can remove a loose impediment, twigs, pebbles, maybe a stray leaf. But in this case, the loose impediment in question was a massive boulder. Most players would have just taken their medicine. But Tiger? He had a better idea. That's when the fans stepped up. A group of spectators, eager to help their guy, surrounded the boulder and started rolling. Inch by inch, they shoved the giant rock aside, clearing a perfect path for Tiger's next shot. With the obstacle gone, Woods took his stance, lasered his approach onto the green, and just like that, the legend of the boulder was born. Rules controversy? Maybe. Absolute power move? Definitely.